Hello and welcome to Destination Draft Day. I'm Michael Rochman, and you are here for some very exciting stuff when it comes to the NFL draft, NFL, college football, anything in between. We are back and ready for action. Nick Durst, Michael Rochman. We are very excited. Today we're going to be talking about the Denver Broncos and the Washington Commanders, two teams that are heavily rumored in the QB market, two teams that desperately are trying to get into that playoff run because they feel like they have a good enough roster. They just are a few pieces away. But before we dive into any of that, Nick Durst, how's your Friday going?
The boys are back in town. We're back here better than ever. And, just a lot of good NFL rumors going on right now, different people being hired. So Matt Nagy today is going to be the new quarterback coach with the Chiefs. So he was with Andy Reid before he was the quarterback, or before he was the coach with the Bears. Nagy, say what you want about him, at least, he took the Bears to the playoffs back-to-back years. So his big mistake, though, is making Nick Foles the starting quarterback. And that kind of was the undoing there. You bench Trubisky. Now it's hot. The QB market's hot. We're hearing a lot of Trubisky's going to get a starting job. He definitely should, I think. I really would love the rumors of that I've been saying for months now, which was Trubisky follows everybody down New York and to New Jersey and is the quarterback for the Giants. I think Trubisky is a big upgrade over Daniel Jones in the sense of he's durable. He's going to play every game. It's not as fast as Jones, but he's better when it comes to, his ball security and whatnot. And, the other big quarterback news, of course, is just, what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. I don't know why anybody thought he was going to make a decision this week. I don't know why everyone was thinking that, but I think he's going to play again. I'd be shocked if he retires. If it's about winning a championship, then he should stay in Green Bay. But if it's about money, I would think Green Bay could offer him the most too. So I guess it's just going to be about him and, where he's at personally with his personal life, where he wants to, be. And, I know you're very excited next week, Michael. NFL Combine. So you're locked in. You love this time of year.
Yeah, I've been trying to get some reports out. I don't know if anyone here doesn't know, but I recently launched a YouTube channel called 2 Minute Drill where I'm doing quick hitting NFL content, trying to get the word out in the fastest, quickest analysis as possible. I've been doing a lot of research on my own, writing up reports for a lot of these players. I'm very excited to see what happens at the Combine. There are going to be players that can really make or break their stock, can have a huge rise, can have a huge fall. There's going to be a lot of question marks surrounding the just overall testing of it, some of the off-field stuff that will happen, like interviews and just overall behavior during the event. And, it's the last year in Indianapolis, which is going to be quite interesting. I was never able to attend the Combine, unfortunately, but it is crazy that going forward, it's going to become this market where, we could see it in Frisco next year or Las Vegas next year, and it's just going to be a bid-on type event. And, yeah, that's the
Are they going to start letting fans into the Combine? I would think so.
I would think so.
Move, right?
They're trying to capitalize on the market, so I think they'd want fans in there. Maybe it'd be a select amount of fans. I'm not sure, but it does seem like they are ready to change up the Combine and make it more of a TV event. So we'll see what happens with it.
All right, Mike, I got to ask you, if you had the chance as a media member to work one of these events, would it be the Combine? Would it be the Senior Bowl? Would it be the Super Bowl, or would it be the draft?
I think I'd have to say the Senior or the Super Bowl, just because it's what everything is worked up to. But working the NFL draft, working the Combine, Senior Bowl, whatever, would be extremely awesome. It would be a dream come true. But yeah, I'd have to go with the Super Bowl.
Now, is your favorite part of the Combine when you got Bill Belichick out there with the timer? And he's doing the cone drills or whatever he always does the timing on.
Yeah, it's hilarious to see him on screen because he's always got something wacky going on. All the old head coaches always have these weird methods. Like a lot of them have the hand timer that they're just holding out right in front of them and hand clocking it. And I don't know. There's so much advanced equipment to where a lot of these teams don't really care that much about a 40 time or whatever, but it's just really funny to see where some of these older scouts are just, hand timing and probably not even asking about the official time because they trust themselves more.
Now, I'm going to put you on the spot here, but give me a player who the combine is truly going to be make or break for, where it's either going to be like, all right, this guy is legit. He's going to be a top, a day one, day two pick. Or it's like, if he doesn't have a good showing, he could be looking at late day 3.
Yeah, so I think the answer for that one has to be Tariq Woolen out of UTSA. He's a defensive back that offers tremendous size and speed. But the thing is, you have to be such a great athlete for teams to not care about the rawness that comes with your game. He's 6'4", 205 pounds. Probably going to be a safety. Probably have to contribute in special teams until he kind of gets acclimated with the NFL. But right now, he's playing corner for UTSA, or he was playing corner for UTSA. He showed some solid stuff, but he had a lot of rawness to his game. If he absolutely blows up the combine, then I think NFL teams are going to say, look, it doesn't matter. You don't get a player that size with that athleticism that's going to make it happen. But if he struggles, if he kind of runs like 4.5, he doesn't completely blow out the combine, then I think teams are going to be a lot less intrigued. And they're going to say, all right, he's just a day 3 UDFA type pick that doesn't really have as much potential as we may have thought.
Yeah. And, I'm very curious to see what the quarterbacks do at the combine, because typically you get the big name quarterbacks, they don't throw at the combine, but there, like you said, there isn't like a clear cut, like this is the top quarterback in the draft. So I'm curious to see if a lot of these guys actually decide to throw for a change, or if it's still going to be like, got to wait for the pro days.
Yeah, I think there is going to be a lot of competition in that regard. So I can see these teams kind of pushing for them to really kind of go out there and throw, just because I think right now, maybe these teams have an idea of who they think is the top quarterback in this class, but ultimately a lot of teams are probably still very much up in the air, and it could be changed by a single workout. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of these guys are coming out, throwing, competing, and I think it could result in some fun kind of drama, even if they aren't actually that like against each other in real life.
So obviously, right now you had your top quarterback out off the board to the Giants, which is, you think he's the best fit, but realistically, maybe that is it. But what do you think is the first team that would take a quarterback? Is it definitely the Giants, or can you see the Texans fall in love with somebody and saying, let's go draft our guy?
Oh, it's not definitely the Giants. I think the Giants might be the first team that would genuinely consider it. But, I mean, the Giants could very easily enter draft day and say, we're going to give Daniel Jones another year. Or we're going to have Daniel Jones and then maybe give like a Marcus Mariota a chance to take that job from him. But they aren't going to
bring somebody.
Yeah, they might bring in someone, but I don't think they are guaranteed to draft someone. And I think the first team where you're saying they're going to draft someone, or at least like make a move for a QB,
Steelers?
is the Panthers, assuming they don't make a trade. Oh. If it's not them, then it's Broncos, assuming they don't make a trade. If it's not them, then it's Washington, assuming they don't make a trade. So there's plenty of uncertainty just because of all the available commodities on the trade market. Even guys like Kirk Cousins are being heavily involved in trade rumors. So we could see some of these teams kind of work themselves out of the trade picture or the QB picture when it comes to their draft pick. But ultimately, right now, I think the latest the QB would go is at 6 to the Carolina Panthers.
So as far as teams that we think need quarterbacks, it's the Texans. We both kind of agree they're probably going to run it back with Davis Mills one more year and bring a veteran. Obviously, we think the Colts are going to move off from Carson Wentz, so they're going to be looking for a quarterback. We both agree the Giants need a quarterback. We know the Steelers need a quarterback. We know Washington football team and the Panthers need a quarterback. We know the Broncos are looking for a quarterback. That's 7 teams right there. If the Vikings are moving off from Kirk Cousins for cap or whatever reasons, that's 8 quarterbacks right there. So you're looking at, at least 6, maybe 8 different teams with a new starting quarterback next year, which is pretty much the same we saw this year, which is crazy to think.
Yeah, in my opinion, if the Vikings are looking to genuinely move off of Kirk Cousins, then I assume it's because they love one of these rookies and they're saying, okay, we need to move up and get them. We'll take the year of maybe rebuilding it, but we want them. Just looking at fit in terms of what we kind of seen from the Kevin O'Connell QBs. I would assume that'd probably be like a Pickett type. But really, it could ultimately be anyone. I think there's a lot of guys that offer intriguing tools, even maybe not my QB1 and Willis, but, Corral obviously has some very impressive traits. He has some great velocity on his ball. Howell was arguably the top QB and then had a bad year, but a lot of that could be associated with his offensive line. Even guys like Desmond Ridder, guys like Carson Strong could be in consideration. So there's plenty of options, and I think that if the Vikings are moving off of Kirk Cousins, it's because they get an offer that they can't refuse in terms of draft capital, and it's because they view one of these young quarterbacks as their future for the franchise.
Listen, I think if you're the Steelers and if you're the Broncos, because I don't think if the Broncos can't get Rodgers, I would want Cousins badly. I think you put him in with those teams, it's a big upgrade. I think if you put Cousins on the Steelers, this is definitely a playoff team next year. Same if they want to get Garoppolo, I think they'll be in the playoffs again as well. So those teams, they should be going for a veteran, I think, at this point, just because the QB class isn't that great. Maybe we get one guy who is, comes out of this, which is fantastic. The Steelers, I think they should consider Pickett, though, if he's there when they're drafting. I don't think they should move up, but Pittsburgh guy, I think his frame and his skill set is very similar to Ben Roethlisberger when he was younger. He's got that sneaky mobility and whatnot, tough guy. So we'll see. But Cousins, I think a lot of teams would want. Obviously, if the Seahawks move on from Russell Wilson, he's the top guy. Deshaun Watson now, it seems like he's going to court in 22 cases. So the NFL needs to make a decision, I think, here. If they don't, we're going to see another season of him on the Texans not playing. And that's just not good for the Texans. And, we really didn't talk about this, but, you were the first to really say, the Texans, they love Josh McCown. They wanted to be the coach. They didn't hire him because people were like, you're going to hire this guy with no experience. And then everything with Brian Flores came out. I like their hire. Lovie Smith deserves this job. But right now, the Texans, Michael, are just an utter disaster. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that the league will not make a formal decision on their star quarterback. Because if they say, yes, he could play, then people will trade for Deshaun Watson. If you say nothing, then why would you give up a first-round pick for a quarterback who might not play for 2 years?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of speculation around Deshaun Watson, but ultimately nothing matters until the NFL makes a decision and we get some clarity in that regard. So for teams today's teams like Denver and Washington, for teams like Carolina, for teams like potentially Minnesota, they are looking to see if this QB could be available for them, and they have no idea. So right now, I understand waiting with the situation that was given to them because, Deshaun wasn't playing. The offseason now is taking place. But you kind of have to hope that this situation speeds up because right now it's not good for the NFL if one of the top talents is just sitting. If he's suspended, I get it. I'm not going to say, you shouldn't suspend top talents. But it's not good if there's just no decision on it and we're just wasting away days where no decision's being made at all. If you make a decision, and even if you're just saying, look, he's not allowed to play until we get clarity on the court case, that's fine. But right now it's just, no decision. No team knows what's going to happen. No team has any idea of what kind of punishment he could face. So, a lot of teams are probably hesitant to trade. And I know there's some teams that are still willing to make the offer, willing to make the trade, but it creates this just uncertainty throughout the NFL, and I think the NFL itself needs to fix it.
Yeah, that's crazy. Just get it together, NFL. Make a decision. Because the Texans need to just go in there and be like, hey, Roger, we're going to play Deshaun this year. He's going to start and see what he says. He's got to make a decision at some point, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I think maybe that could work. Just a nice little bluff on him. And then, he may call it, but ultimately worth the risk. Nothing to lose.
Yeah. Well, it'd be in Deshaun's best interest to play along with that ruse too and be like, yeah, I'm going to play for the Texans. Put some pressure on him. But all right, so we got two teams here. Very curious to see what you're going to do at the quarterback spot for both of these franchises.
Yeah, so I think we disagree in regards to what Denver's going to do because I think you mentioned you don't think Rodgers is going to happen. I just don't see him coming back to Green Bay. And I think that the Broncos have a ton that they can offer to where this makes so much sense. They trade the ninth pick of this draft. They trade their first round pick next year. They trade their third round this year, number 75. And they trade wide receiver Tim Patrick to the Broncos or to the Packers and get Aaron Rodgers to fix their quarterback issue. I think in terms of other offers, they still have money. They can restructure and go all out for contending in this team. And with that, I think they signed Chandler Jones, the Arizona edge rusher, to a 2-year, $30 million deal, fix up the edge issues. You know, him and Bradley Chubb would be a tremendous duo. Then at wide receiver, I have them signing Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I think you bring him in and you get kind of a solidified wide receiver room with the departure of Tim Patrick. In terms of re-signings, I think you can bring back Kenny Young, Josie Jewell, kind of fill out that linebacker unit. Bryce Callahan, Kareem Jackson are both a little bit undervalued when it comes to the NFL. So if I'm Denver, I'm absolutely bringing them back on bargain deals. And then Malik Reed, I think, can add to the rotation at the edge. I think that'd be a perfect addition and really kind of spark what would be a great start to this offseason. In the draft at number 40, I have him going Nicholas Petite Freire, the offensive tackle out of Ohio State. This is someone that, in my mind, should be a first-round pick. I guess NFL just doesn't feel the same. At 40, though, I think he's a great value. The Broncos need a right tackle. Or, you know, if they want to put Bowles back at right tackle, I don't think that would be the case. But either or, I think Petite Freire can be a starting long-term tackle for this team. They lose Mike Munchak, so they don't really have the trust of developing someone that's going to be like we draft this guy and then he's just going to be a stud. But I do think Petite Freire is going to be a great long-term piece for the Broncos if drafted here. Whatever team drafts him, he's going to be a great long-term piece. And for the Broncos' needs, it's perfect at number 40. At number 64 from the Rams, I have him getting Jalen Tolbert, the wide receiver out of South Alabama. You add to that wide receiver room. This is someone that I think is kind of well-rounded, 6'1", 200 pounds, has very nice frame, very nice hands, star really for the South Alabama team. And he was able to compete even whenever the competition went up, and I think that says a lot about him. He was in the Senior Bowl. I'm not sure if you got to see him, but he did pretty well there. Really just someone that offers nice speed, nice versatility, can play the role that I think fits perfectly with Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton on the offense, and I think it results in a perfect fit. At number 96, I have him going John Ridgeway, the defensive lineman out of Arkansas, fitting into that nose spot. I think Purcell is the nose tackle for right now, but I think, you know, as he gets a little bit older, as the defensive line kind of gets older overall, you want a guy like Ridgeway on that unit. I don't trust that the defense for Denver is going to be as strong with Fangio gone. I think Fangio is definitely a big part of that success. I still like the new defense coordinator coming from the Rams. I think there's going to be some success still, but you know, I think you need to kind of grab some pieces that can help out those units that you've gotten by on in terms of just the head coach. So Ridgeway at 96, I think, is an absolutely tremendous grab. At 113, Deangelo Malone out of Western Kentucky is the pick. He's an edge rusher that I think can really contribute to this team. Yes, he'd be in rotation a bit, probably work his way up from the 4 spot, hopefully up to the 3 spot and further on from there. This guy has been providing just dominant stats for the Hilltoppers at Western Kentucky. I think as you kind of get him developed to the NFL, he should be able to contribute. I think this is someone that is a little bit more than just a Western Kentucky guy that produced a lot of sacks, because that is what has been the case for a lot of these guys. In the 4th round here, working off of other pieces on this Denver team, I think there's plenty of potential for him to eventually become a starter for this squad. At 144, I have him going Zamir White, running back out of Georgia. I don't think Melvin Gordon is going to be a feasible return. I think a team is going to pay him enough to kind of make the Broncos pass on him. Javonte Williams is going to be a stud. I think with the full workload, he's going to be absolutely dominant. But you need someone behind him that can help kind of take off some of the carries, and I think Zamir White is perfect for that. Worked in rotation at Georgia, but really could have been a bell cow somewhere else if he wanted to. I think this is someone that is a little bit underrated as a running back. Get him here at 144. It's great value, and I think he can easily contribute to the running back room. At 151, I have him going to Mari Mathis out of Pittsburgh. You add a cornerback to this unit. I think you need some depth on the outside. You have Darby, you have Surtain, you have Bryce Callahan as your starters, and you have Ojemudia as a backup, but I think you need a little bit more depth. And getting a guy like Mathis here at 151, I think, provides that. And then at 248, I have him going linebacker Ellis Brooks out of Penn State. Just a well-rounded guy that I think can contribute in a multitude of ways. I think you add that reliability and some depth to the linebacker unit that's kind of young. Even if you bring back guys like Kenny Young, Josie Jewell, you still need some more talent onto it, just in terms of filling out the room, and I think Ellis Brooks does that. So with a draft like this, you look ahead to the offense, and I mean, it looks good on paper. Aaron Rodgers at QB.
Anytime Aaron Rodgers is on your team, it looks good on paper for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Aaron Rodgers at QB, Javonte Williams at running back, the wide receiver unit of Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, tight end of Noah Fant, who I think is extremely underrated, and then an offensive line of Garrett Bowles, Dalton Reisner, Quinn Miners, Graham Glasgow, and Nicholas Petite Freire. And then you got to consider the fact that you can have guys like Lloyd Cushenberry fit in when injuries occur. You have Zamir White behind Javonte Williams. You have Jalen Tolbert behind those three receivers. There's plenty of talent on this Broncos team that if they can go out and make a trade for a QB, they still have so much opportunity to where I think it makes perfect sense. And this is the team that needs to make that deal more than anyone because they can really capitalize on a Super Bowl window.
Michael,
so Nick, looking at the offense, what are your thoughts on this unit?
Well, obviously, if you go with Aaron Rodgers, that's fantastic. I don't think he'd be happy without Devontae Adams, though. So I think he's pretty much thinking they're going to be a package deal somewhere. Don't know if that's going to work out financially. So we shall see. Listen, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is great. I think you put him in this division, it's going to be very tough for them to win the division. It's not going to be a walk in the park. It's not going to be too easy. Maybe they're a wild card team, but if they get Aaron Rodgers, good for them. But like you said, me personally, I don't see why he would go here if he cares about winning, because the path to the Super Bowl will be a lot more challenging in the AFC. The NFC, you got him, and the Rams, and that's really it as far as the tough teams there in the NFC next year. Because I think the Bucs are going to be atrocious without Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski. The Saints without Sean Payton are going to be really bad. The Cowboys will probably win the division again. We know they can't win a playoff game. Maybe the Cardinals figure it out next year. The NFC is just the easy path to the Super Bowl, and if you care about the rings, then maybe that's where I would suggest he stay in the NFC. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point in terms of just where it's easiest to contend. And the AFC West would be harder than anywhere to win because you're not only dealing with Mahomes' Chiefs, but you're also dealing with a highly motivated Raiders team that just had one of the better end-of-season plays in football. You're also dealing with the Los Angeles Chargers that have probably one of the most intriguing young quarterback talents in the NFL that could easily, turn it up to where the Chargers aren't just a team that is competitive, but a team that's contending in the matter of it, like a single offseason. So there is plenty of concern. If you are any Broncos fan, Aaron Rodgers, any free agent that could potentially sign with Denver, there's definitely a concern there. But I do think that with Rodgers on this roster, they can compete with anyone. That's why I think a move like this is almost absolutely necessary if it's available to the Broncos.
Yeah, we're going to see. I would think we would – I don't know if we're going to see before the draft, but obviously that's what I think Denver would like, because I think they want to figure things out here as the league year opens up and we head into free agency.
Absolutely. And then we switch over to the defensive side. Shelby Harris, Mike Purcell, and Draymond Jones on the defensive line. Chandler Jones and Bradley Chubb at the edge spot, especially with Malik Reed, Deangelo Malone in rotation there. Linebacker, you have Baron Browning and Kenny Young. Josie Jewell could very easily be on this graphic as well. And that includes Ellis Brooks, who hopefully can kind of fill in at that linebacker 4 spot and step up if there were injuries, because the Broncos linebacker unit was solid last year, but it was completely decimated with injuries to where they were starting like their linebacker 6 and 7. So they definitely need to make sure that they're healthy this year. I think they have the talent, though, if healthy, to have a good unit there. The cornerback unit, very intriguing with Patrick Surtain, Ronald Darby, and Bryce Callahan. Plenty of talent there, especially with Surtain kind of growing and becoming more and more of a top talent in this league. And then the safety unit of Justin Simmons and Kareem Jackson. Kareem Jackson's kind of a question mark on if he returns, but even if he were to leave, I think Caden Stearns would be able to fill into that strong safety spot quite well. Nick, this is a defense that with Fangio, they were pretty solid. I mean, the injuries had their impact and it caused some issues from a few games, but ultimately, this was a unit that had plenty of talent, plenty of ability. Do you think that this is a team that can potentially kind of become a contender if they make the additions that you've kind of seen through this mock off-season blueprint?
Well, I mean, Chandler Jones would be a great signing. But, do we definitely rule out them bringing Von Miller back? I don't know. I think Von Miller, now he's got another ring, he's just going to go for the money. So I don't think he's going to take a discount to go back to the Rams, who don't have much cap space. So that'd be interesting there. If they get Rodgers, they a playoff team probably. I just, even with this defense, it wouldn't matter as much because you got Rodgers. Look at the Packers. I just don't think I would consider them a contender in their first year with the new quarterback, new coordinators, and new coach.
Yeah, and I think that's a feasible answer because there is still plenty of question marks in terms of just what the team would become if they are in a situation like this where they have the pieces that have been presented or something similar. Obviously, it probably won't be a one-for-one match in any of these blueprints that I do, but I do think that with the addition of Chandler Jones, with the already existing talent on the roster, with the addition of a QB that kind of solidifies the roster, there is plenty of potential here to contend. It's just, can you convert that possibility of contention into actually doing it? We've seen it with the Bucs, we've seen it with the Rams, but it's not just this easy task of, new QB, we'll get it figured out throughout the regular season and then we win it all once playoff time comes. There's still plenty of question marks regarding the, just overall Broncos team. And I think we're going to see a little bit of transition pains when it comes to not having Vic Fangio there anymore. I think that's completely reasonable to think that, there's going to be some drop-off without a dominant defensive mind running their team. But ultimately, I think if they can make a move for one of the top QBs, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, or Aaron Rodgers, those are probably the only three that I think make them a title contender, like legitimate. But if they are able to do it for one of those three and, those three are able to play the whole course of the season, then I think the Denver Broncos need to get involved because the potential here is too high. So another team that could potentially be looking at a QB is the Washington Commanders, Nick's favorite team because he just loves the team name, loves the color scheme and jerseys. Washington Commanders. And, in terms of what they do, there's not a lot that they need to do, I think. So I think they mostly rely on the draft. Bring back J.D. McKissick, Cam Sims, Ricky Seals-Jones, Cornelius Lucas, and Bobby McCain. I think they should trade their third-round pick for Justin Reed, get that free safety spot completely filled out. In the draft, I like Sam Howell a lot to Washington. I've been saying it the past few weeks, maybe a couple months, that I think Sam Howell is one of the best fits in this draft in terms of him to Washington. I think he'd work excellent in this offense. I think he really is a great fit for what Washington is kind of trying to become. Getting Sam Howell fixes the QB issue in my mind, and I think it really kind of puts them back into a certain kind of window where they can really kind of turn this thing around. And maybe they aren't contending right away with a rookie QB. I wouldn't expect them to. But I do think that, one good year under Howell, while they kind of fix up the roster a little bit more, they could very easily kind of take over this NFC East. This was a team that made the playoffs in Rivera's first year. Yes, it was a bad year for all accounts in the NFC East, but I think the defense has plenty of solid pieces. I think there's plenty of great foundational pieces long-term for this team. They have a very good offensive line. You kind of grab these pieces in the draft. You kind of get your QB solidified, and I think in the future you can have a very promising-looking roster that could potentially become something more than just a young team that has potential. At 42, I have him going Quay Walker, linebacker out of Georgia. This is someone that I think is a little bit underrated in terms of what his draft stock is. He is someone that just has so much talent, so much capability that I think that as he kind of goes through the process, he's going to be drafted earlier than people expect right now. Washington kind of did that same thing with Jamin Davis, picking him a little bit earlier than people expected. So I'm kind of using that as a connection of the dots. I think the need, the talent, the athleticism kind of matches up in terms of what they will be looking for. There's plenty of potential here with Quay Walker. He's a very exciting linebacker with just tremendous capability. Nakobe Dean's the guy that gets a lot of the attention, but Quay Walker has plenty to offer in that regard as well. I think this is someone that, if Washington's able to bring him in, Jamin Davis takes his steps, Quay Walker kind of steps in and develops into something, that's going to be one of the more exciting, more athletic, and just more dangerous linebacker duos in the NFL. And that's why I think if he's on the board at 42, yes, a lot of people might be surprised by it because they haven't done a lot of research in that regard. But I do think that he would be an excellent selection for the Washington football team. With the next pick, I have him going Abraham Lucas at 111. Here's the deal. Charles Leno signed a long-term contract with this Washington football team. But ultimately, right now, there's potential out going forward that could potentially change the mind of this team, kind of make them reconsider if they want to ride with him long-term. So I think you bring in a young, intriguing pass blocker that has the potential to maybe take the job, and you see what he can become. If he develops into something, then you don't have to pay the big price for Charles Leno, and that's great. I think Leno's a very serviceable tackle that's pretty good. Washington does a nice job of developing their offensive line talent, but if you can kind of save money, save some coins, then you do it. And so getting a guy like Abraham Lucas, you have the potential of having him and Sam Cosmi as young lineman duo, young tackle duo, and I think that's something that you really can't pass on. Worst case, though, I think you get a nice swing tackle here with very nice pass blocking upside. With the next pick, I have him going Josh Thompson, corner out of Texas. I think you just need a little bit of additional depth to this room. Bobby McCain doesn't necessarily have to be your long-term answer at slot corner. So you bring in Josh Thompson, you see what he can become. Maybe he's depth on the outside. Maybe he becomes something in the slot. There's plenty of, potential outcomes for him. And I think with his speed and athleticism, there's just a little bit of intrigue to where he could at least provide some capabilities on the free agency or on the special teams unit. So adding him to the secondary, I think, is good for depth and just a good overall move for the Washington Commanders. And then with the last pick of their draft at 228, I have him going Mike Harley, the wide receiver out of Miami. I think this is someone that is a dependable wide receiver, really kind of someone that I think is a sleeper in this class. And ultimately with the Washington football team, they have some positions that are solved in their minds, I think, where they have, DeAndre Carter, Cam Sims, De'Ami Brown as their wide receiver 3 competition. They have Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin as their wide receiver duo. But McLaurin played 5 games last year. De'Ami Brown did not really make the strides necessary. So while I don't think you really go reinvest entirely in that wide receiver spot, I think you need some safety nets. And I think Mike Harley kind of provides that safety net to where you can feel a lot more comfortable about your wide receiver spot, regardless of what happens heading into this next season. So, Nick, obviously we disagree on our QB rankings. You'd probably say, like, if the board played out how I have it playing out, you'd think they should go pick it. But ultimately, what do you think of this Washington team in terms of just upside and potential going forward? And what do you think a draft like this could do for them?
Well, right now, my top two guys would be Pickett and Howe. So totally fine with this. Think it'd be a great pick for them. Could be a good spot. Maybe. There's just too many red flags with the Washington Commanders right now. And I really don't know how much longer they're going to give Ron Rivera here, which is crazy to hear. But and now they're going to be under this maybe another big investigation. Could be rough. But I like getting Hal, getting Lucas for offensive line, solid. Picking up Harley there, pretty good. And then later on, you're getting Josh Thompson, and they definitely need help in the secondary. That's for sure. But again, this is a winnable division. They'd have, they want to close the gap between them and the Eagles and Cowboys here. Eagles, they didn't really tell you much last year. They made the playoffs, but they got blown out. But if they're going to draft a quarterback, Sam Howell would certainly be a good pick.
Yeah, I agree. I really do like the fit, and I think that Howell kind of got a short end of the stick in terms of just how bad his offensive line was. And I know that that's not the only reason people have dropped on him. They think that he played into it. He had some bad moments as well. And I'm not even disagreeing with that. But I do think that, a comfortable QB is a much better one. And I think if you put Howell behind a better offensive line, and Washington kind of provides that, then I think you have a lot more upside with what he can do. And I think there's still plenty of talent there for Howell to become something special. And really, Quay Walker is a little bit of a risk. I think that's something that whenever I share this out, I'm sure if there's any comments, it'll be, oh, why are they drafting Quay Walker so fast, like so early in his class? But I really do think that this is someone that can become something special in the league. And I think for a team like Washington, they are willing to swing for the fences when it comes to taking that risk if they see the upside as being there. And I think the upside is certainly there for them to kind of capitalize on that potential and become a team that has two very athletic and talented linebackers. And I think that would be huge for them, especially with the history that Ron Rivera has with guys like a Luke Kuechly or a Thomas Davis type duo, where, the chance to have two linebackers that are extremely intriguing and extremely talented is just too good of an opportunity to pass on. So we move from this draft to the offense. Sam Howell at QB, Antonio Gibson at running back, Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, De'Ami Brown, hopefully kind of making those steps. Hopefully with his former college QB, it's easier for him to do that. And then Logan Thomas at tight end. You got Charles Leno at left tackle. You got Eric Flowers at the guard spot. You got Chase Roulier at center. Wes Shyster at guard, because I don't think Sheriff is going to return. Apparently they offered to make him the highest paid guard in the NFL, and he still wants to test the market. I think he might be ready to kind of head out and go somewhere else. Maybe it's a chance to contend that he wants. I'm not sure, but it seems like he could potentially be on the way out. So I wouldn't be surprised if he is. So I have them kind of riding with Schweister. And then Sam Cosmi at right tackle, who they really seem to love, and he has plenty of athletic upside, really kind of performed well on the offensive line. So, this is an offense that definitely has some question marks. You need to see guys like Curtis Samuel really stay healthy. You need to see really anyone in this wide receiver unit step up. You need to see some consistency out of Logan Thomas. You need to see the offensive line continue to gel so that Sam Howell can have his job be easier. But, Nick, in terms of offense for Washington, what should be the expectation next year with all the question marks that do still exist on this roster?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what to expect out of this team. I would say, Logan Thomas was tremendous last year, and I can expect him to be the top target for whoever is coming in at quarterback. Antonio Gibson had a good year as well. I would say they should probably look to add a wide receiver, though.
Yeah, I think the big question mark is just how much faith do they have in Curtis Samuel returning. Obviously, Terry McLaurin, probably one of the top talents at wide receiver in the NFL,
Right.
but the rest of the position is just kind of up in the air for what they are going to be able to do. And you can't have just one receiver, one weapon on this team. So, I mean, there's going to be plenty of question marks. There's going to be plenty of concerns for this team. And I think that they could very easily address the spot early and maybe say, look, we aren't happy with it. And worst case, we have 4 guys that we're just thrilled with at receiver. But right now we feel the need to invest. And in the same regard, they could easily just kind of say, look, we're confident in our guys to make that jump, and we don't feel the need to really kind of look into the position. So plenty of interesting storylines in terms of team building that we could keep an eye on for Washington. I'm really excited to see what this team can do, though, because I do think the potential and the ceiling for this team in terms of just building it up and making it into something has plenty to offer. And I think there's just really a chance that if they don't mess this up, they could have one of the more fun teams in the league, a very intriguing young offense, and something that I think could really kind of maybe just kind of take over the division in 1-2 years' time, or at least kind of take over the second spot, especially because Philadelphia made playoffs, but there's still very much doubts about that team. I think that's fair to say. So that number 2 spot's wide open, and I don't think Dallas has a strong grip to where Washington can never kind of move their way up into that top spot in the division. Moving over to the defensive side, Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, and Matthew Ioannidis on the defensive line. They run a 4-3, but all 3 of these guys are so crucial to the defense that I had to include them. Chase Young and Montez Sweat on the edge, Jamin Davis, Quay Walker, and then Landon Collins, who kind of plays that quasi linebacker spot. He's in a weird spot, and there is questions on if he ends up getting cut because cap hit is so high, but I think they restructure him or renegotiate the contract. At corner, they got William Jackson III, Kendall Fuller, and Bobby McCain, who they invested so much money in last year. Jackson wasn't great. I think he still needs to kind of step it up, but I again think they kind of trust their initial investment more so than look to replace. Justin Reed, I think, would be a problem solver and tremendous add to the secondary. And Cameron Curl, probably one of the more underrated talents in the NFL just because he is such a talented, strong safety, probably to the level of Jeremy Chin, but with probably 30% of the recognition. So I think this defense is very talented, very capable, and something that, the foundation of the Washington football team is built on. And, real quick before we kind of dive into potential expectations or what this team could become, Nick, Chase Young has been rumored to be part of trade rumors surrounding Watson, Rodgers, everyone. Do you think that trading a talent like Chase Young would be a terrible mistake, or do you think it's something where if you can get that QB that really kind of pushes your team over the top, then it's worth it?
It only really makes sense if they're thinking like they're not going to be able to re-sign him in 2 years to a big deal. You would expect that he would say that he wants to be the highest paid defensive end in the league. I think that's a fair guess. Him and Bosa will get it, and then he'll want to surpass that right after. So it's interesting. I mean, I would think if you want to trade him for a Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, I think that makes sense because you got to give to get. But other than that, it would kind of be a little shocking, I think.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of understandable dialogue to be had about trading Chase Young, but I think if you can find someone that you like in this class, and it doesn't have to be Howell, their evaluation is what they'll go off of. So if they love Kenny Pickett, or if they love Matt Corral, or if they love even Desmond Ridder or Carson Strong, then I think you have to kind of look, we want to ride with that rather than departing with some of our best players on our roster. So Washington, this is the blueprint. I really like what they could do. I think that this sets them up to kind of build their roster and become a playoff contender quickly. Not first year, I don't think, just because rookie QBs take time to get acclimated. They still have some holes on the offense in terms of weapons. I think still needs to be resolved. They could add some pieces to their defense, but this is what I do for the Washington Commanders, sorry. And I think there is plenty of potential with a draft like this. You know, Nick, assuming they follow a similar format, doesn't have to be drafting Quay Walker, doesn't have to be drafting Sam Howell, but let's say they address most of the roster in similar ways. Do you think this is a team that could push for that second spot in the division? Do you think they could push for number one? Do you think they could potentially find themselves in the playoff picture?
The NFC East, anything's possible. I think they could certainly be in the picture to make the playoffs. If things break well, they can get in there. I just think that for this season, it would be very tough for them to make it with a rookie quarterback. I think that's going to be pretty unlikely. It's a rarity. We're seeing, rookie quarterbacks go to the playoffs in the first year unless you're with Bill Belichick. So last year. So I think, the defense is good, but I would say that, they're a bit behind the Cowboys just because the Cowboys have a lot of things in place. And, the Cowboys are built for the regular season and they're able to win a lot of games.
I would agree with you. So that's all we have for you in terms of the blueprints for today. I'm Michael Rochman. That's Nick Durst. You're watching Destination Draft Day. We will see you guys on Monday when we talk about the next teams up on the blueprints. Minnesota Vikings, Cleveland Browns, two teams that have plenty to turn around because they were looking for playoffs and disappointed this season. Until then, though, have a great weekend. We appreciate everyone who's watching. We appreciate ChrisLandryFootball.com for the platform. Take care, guys, and we'll see you Monday.